In the early hours of March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777 Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. Its destination, Beijing, China. On board were 127 passengers and 12 crew members. The flight began like any other. Takeoff was smooth, the plane ascended to its cruising altitude, and everything seemed perfectly normal. For the first 38 minutes of the flight, everything was routine. Then, somewhere over the South China Sea, as the plane was about to pass from Malaysian to Vietnamese air traffic control, it vanished. Just like that. No distress signal, no mayday call, just silence. The transponder, which communicates the plane's identity and altitude to radar, was switched off. The last verbal communication came from the cockpit, "Good night, Malaysian 370. Moments later, MH370 disappeared from civilian radar screens. But this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of one of the greatest mysteries in modern aviation history. While civilian radar lost the plane, military radar had a different story to tell. It appeared to show the aircraft making a sharp turn, flying back across the Malay Peninsula, and then heading northwest over the Andaman Sea. This deviation from its planned flight path was deliberate and controlled. It wasn't a sign of a catastrophic failure or an explosion. Someone was flying the plane, but where were they going and why? The world's attention was fixated on this ghost flight, a massive passenger jet flying blind through the night sky, its intentions completely unknown. The initial search and rescue operations frantically scoured the South China Sea, the area where the plane was last seen on civilian radar. But they were looking in the wrong place. The real search area was thousands of miles away. The key to understanding where the plane went came from a British satellite company, Inmarsat. Their satellite had been receiving automated pings, or handshakes, from the aircraft systems for hours after it vanished. These pings didn't give a precise location, but by analyzing the time it took for the signals to travel, investigators could calculate to massive arcs of possible locations where the final handshake was sent. One arc stretched north across Central Asia, and the other curved deep into the southern Indian Ocean. The northern route seemed unlikely. The plane would have had to cross the airspace of several countries, and it's almost certain it would have been detected by their military radar. That left the southern route a desolate, remote, and incredibly deep stretch of ocean, often called one of the loneliest places on Earth. This revelation triggered the largest and most expensive search in aviation history. Dozens of countries contributed ships, aircraft, and advanced underwater technology to scour the southern Indian Ocean. For years, teams meticulously combed a search area of over 120,000 square kilometers, equivalent to the size of Greece. They used sophisticated sonar equipment towed deep underwater to map the seabed in unprecedented detail. Day after day, week after week, the world watched, hoping for a breakthrough. But the ocean held its secrets tightly. The official underwater search found nothing, not a single piece of the aircraft. It was a painstaking and ultimately fruitless effort. The vastness of the ocean seemed to have swallowed the Boeing 777 whole. It wasn't until July 2015, over a year after the disappearance, that the first piece of confirmed debris washed ashore. A piece of the wing, known as a flaperon, was discovered on Reunion Island, thousands of kilometers west of the search area. Over the next few years, more than 30 pieces of debris, either confirmed or highly likely to be from MH370, washed up on the shores of East Africa, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Madagascar. These discoveries confirmed that the plane had indeed gone down in the Indian Ocean, and that it had met a violent end. But they didn't answer the crucial questions. Why did it fly there? And what happened in the final moments? The debris provided clues, but not the closure the families of the 239 people on board so desperately needed. The black boxes, which hold the cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder, have never been found. Without them, the final moments of Flight 370 remain a complete mystery. So, what actually happened to MH370? In the absence of definitive evidence, numerous theories have emerged, ranging from the plausible to the outright bizarre. The official investigation concluded that the plane's deviation from its flight path was likely due to deliberate action by someone on board, but they couldn't determine who or why. One of the most prominent theories centers on the pilot, Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. Some investigators speculate that he may have deliberately crashed the plane in a case of pilot suicide, taking everyone on board with him. They point to a flight simulator found in his home, which contained a route plotted deep into the southern Indian Ocean, eerily similar to the plane's final flight path. However, his family and friends vehemently deny this, describing him as a dedicated professional and a stable family man with no known personal issues. There is no hard evidence to support this theory. Another leading theory is a hijacking, but not a typical one. Perhaps someone other than the pilots took control of the aircraft, either through force or by sneaking into the electronics bay to disable the communication systems. The motive for such a hijacking remains a complete unknown. There was no ransom demand, no political statement, and no group claimed responsibility. If it was a hijacking, it was a silent one with a goal that remains completely obscure. Could it have been an act of terrorism? Intelligence agencies investigated the backgrounds of all passengers and found no credible links to extremist groups. A third possibility is a sudden, catastrophic event that incapacitated the crew without destroying the plane. This could have been a fire, a rapid decompression, or a major electrical failure. In this scenario, the plane could have continued flying on autopilot for hours until it ran out of fuel. This would explain the long flight south. But it doesn't fully explain why the communication systems were manually turned off, or why the plane made such precise, deliberate turns early on in its deviation. The 7 handshakes from the Inmarsat satellite remain the most solid piece of data, but also one of the most haunting. They tell us the plane was still powered and flying for at least 7 hours after its last contact. But they can't tell us who was in control, or what their state of mind was. Was the cockpit a scene of a struggle? Or was it silent, with an unconscious crew and a plane flying itself to its doom? Every piece of information seems to lead to more questions. Why turn off the transponder but leave the satellite communication system to ping for hours? Why fly for so long over one of the most remote parts of the planet? The official report, released in 2018, concluded that the investigation team was unable to determine the real cause for the disappearance. It was an admission of defeat in the face of an unprecedented mystery. Years later, the fate of Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 remains unknown. For the families of the 239 people who were on that flight, the lack of answers is an open wound. They are trapped in a state of limbo, unable to mourn properly, always holding onto a sliver of hope while grappling with the agonizing uncertainty. The disappearance of MH370 exposed vulnerabilities in our global aviation tracking systems and prompted changes to ensure that a commercial airliner can never simply vanish again. But for this one flight, the story remains unfinished. The search may have been called off, but the quest for truth continues. Private companies have launched their own searches, and new analysis of satellite debris drift data continue to refine the potential crash location. The mystery of MH370 is a chilling reminder that even in our hyper-connected, modern world, there are still unknowns. Some believe the truth is lying at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, waiting to be discovered. Others fear it may be lost forever. But the world continues to watch and to wait, hoping that one day, we will finally know what happened on that fateful night. Thank you for watching. If you found this story as compelling as we do, please consider subscribing for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries.